Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Is it working? Okay, good. I have a tendency to move around a lot. Sometimes do this. So if you can't hear me, just wave at me. If I haven't had a chance to meet you, my name is Phil Arcuria. I work for Actionable Analytics in the Provost office. And today my presentation is going to be a general introduction to JSON and then a little bit on super data types. So if you're like me over the last couple of years, you've been seeing more and more of JSON. And my initial experience is I would open up the file, I would look at it and think, oh my God, what is that? I'd close the file and I'd say, send me a CSV. Uh, and that was pretty much it for a while. But then I thought, I really need to get an understanding of this. So that's the purpose today. Today is not to make you a data engineer. It's not to show you how to write JSON from scratch or how to do anything complicated. It's really to give you an introduction. So when you pop open that file, you at least have an idea of what's going on there. And hopefully it will reduce that, that barrier to entry to say, you know what, it really isn't as bad as it may seem. So we're going to talk about what JSON is, some building blocks, nesting, which is a key part of JSON. We're going to touch on very slightly super data types in Redshift, and then we're going to go through a little bit of exploring JSON and converting. Okay, so what does JSON stand for? It's just JavaScript Object Notation. If you've worked with JavaScript before, you might have some familiarity to the syntax, but the syntax is very straightforward. That's one reason why JSON is so popular is it has very simple syntax. It's also very efficient. So it stores the code and the data in a very efficient way, makes it very easy to transfer a packet of data from one application to the other. It's also application agnostic. So it's got a lot of positives. It could also handle very complex information. So here's just a very oversimplified, quick view of, well, why don't we just use CSVs? Because, that's what I would like. And CSVs, as all of you know, just can't handle really complex data, especially when it's got lots of hierarchy to it. Another common one is XML. So anyone that uses Alteryx in here on the back end, it's XML. But the drawback with XML is it could be very complicated syntax, especially for someone who's not used to it. So JSON's kind of that happy solution that meets both of those. The syntax is simple. That doesn't mean that when you open up a data file, it's going to look simple, but the syntax is simple and it can handle very complex data structures. So what are the building blocks? So we'll talk about each of these, but we have keys, values, arrays, and objects. So key values pair. So this is the heart of JSON. So you have a key. A key you could think of as just a field. It's a variable. You could call it whatever you want. It's that name of that thing, right? That you're going to have data stored against. And then you have the value. So that is the value associated with that key. So the way the format is you'll have name in straight double quotes, and then you'll have the value. So for example, if we had a key, which is the event, which is today, and then the value for that event is just the data conference. Or another key could be the title of this presentation and then the actual title. Not that you'll probably be writing a lot of JSON, but just make sure you use the straight quotes. It does not like smart quotes. Now, the nice thing about JSON is you could use a lot of different data types and you don't have to declare these in advance, right? It'll be known within the syntax. So most of the presentation today, I'm not going to focus on these too much. I think I use strings and numbers in my examples, but you could use Booleans. And then where it gets into the nesting, we'll talk about in advance is you could use arrays, which are just lists, and objects. So it's pretty flexible. There are some characters that will require escaping. Basically, it just means these are special characters. If JSON sees these, it won't know what to do with them unless you tell it what to do. I'm not going to go over these, but I just put these in here. So basically, if you're using quotes in there or slashes, you have to tell it, kind of ignore that. I'm not trying to tell you to do something. That's just part of the text. All right, arrays. Arrays are just lists. So in this example, we have a key, which is topic, right? And so for my today's presentation, sorry, there's more than one topic. So it's going to be stored in there as a list. And the list is just in brackets. You just enclose it in brackets. And then each value within that list is in quotes, and then you separate them with a comma. So very, very straightforward. So just think that within the brackets, it's a list. And they don't have to be the same data type. So I could have in there some strings. I could have strings and integers. I could have strings and Booleans, whatever you want. Obviously, it adds more complexity when you add different data types, but it's possible. Oops. Okay. Now, an object, think of an object as just like a box, right? A box of key value pairs. So you have a number of them. And it's denoted by these curly brackets. So if we see now, we have this object about the presentation, and one key is the event, and the value for that is that's the data conference. Another key is the title of the presentation, the topics, you see the values, the presenter, my name, and you guys blew me away. I thought maybe I'll get 5 people. So this is awesome. So I really appreciate it. You made my day. And so all that is a collection of key value pairs that you're just putting in these curly brackets. And that's called an object. All right. So straightforward so far. Any questions? All right. So this is where you have the power of JSON and also the complexity, at least from kind of human interpretability, at least mine, is when things get nested. So you could just do lots and lots and lots of degrees of nesting within those basic building blocks I just showed you. So let me show it to you just a couple levels. So what I did is I kind of kept the same theme, right? So we have this JSON object about my presentations. So the top level, which is generally called as the root level, there's 3 keys. There's the event, there's a presenter, that's me, and the presentations, which is the presentations I'm giving at this conference. Then if we go the next level down, we have presentations, and we see we have 2 entries in there. And we can tell there's more than one entry because we get this cue in the data that there's an open bracket, which tells us it's a list. It's a list of something. And so that's telling us it's a start of a list. And then down below, we know there's an end of a list. So now the question is, okay, we know in presentations is a list of something. What is it a list of? Well, if we're going through the code, the next thing we see is curly brackets. So we know, okay, there's an object in there. There's at least one box, but surely probably more than one since we know there's a list. So then we say, okay, what's in this box? So if we look in that box, there's several things. The first thing at the next layer down, which we could say is level 3, we have 5 keys. We have the title, the number of attendees, the topics, whether there's any other presenters, and the location. But if we see at the location, we have another open bracket. So that tells us there's another box. So we got a box within a box. So again, tells us the start and end of that box. And so we're looking at the next layer down. So there's actually, you could say there's a next layer down with each of those lists as well. But let's just focus on that box within a box, which is location. So now within location, we have an object that has 3 keys. It tells us what's the building, what's the room, and what's the city. And because presentations, remember, is a list, we have more than one entry. So we have a set of boxes. So the first one is about my presentation here today. And the second one's about my presentation tomorrow. That I'll be giving with Jennifer and Josh. So as you can see, this is how JSON nests data, and it can just keep going like this. Any questions about the nesting so far? Okay. Is this making sense? Is it good? Okay, good. All right. So how bad can it get? In theory, there's no limit. In practicality, that there's a limit to whatever application you're using as the resources. I looked for some sort of standard practice. I didn't see it, although someone said 16. And I thought, 16? Are you kidding me? Like my head would probably blow up like after 5 or 6. So the idea is technologically, you could just keep going and going. But eventually some human has to do something with that. So I would keep that in mind. I've only used anything that's gone to 5 levels, and even that, I really kind of got to focus. So hopefully you won't encounter things that's too deep because it can get very complicated. All right, so Redshift super data type. So this is relatively new. So what is it? It's basically, so think of Redshift, right? Normal database structure, but it's evolved so it could handle semi-structured data like JSON. It could handle other things other than JSON, but for the sake of today, let's just talk about JSON. So you have a normal table, and then in a field, it's basically smushing in JSON. I have no idea what this table is in the warehouse, but it's in there. So I thought I'd use it as an actual example of in the warehouse, there is a super data type using JSON. So as we could see in there, there's squished in there this JSON, and we can see, okay, it's an array of something, has at least one object. The first key on there is account definition ID, and the value is 21, etc. So I don't think there's a whole lot of these, Mark, in the database, are there, of super data types? A fair amount? Okay. So you may encounter these more and more as you're using the data in the warehouse. I know the first time I saw it, I thought, what is that? I thought it was an error. And then I realized, no, it's not an error. It's just a new data type, at least new for me. All right. So what are some tools for understanding a JSON object? Let's see how I am on time here. So there's lots of viewers out there. I personally like JSON Hero. I like the presentation. So basically what you could do is you just put in the text, and if I have a moment it works, I'll show you. But what I want to say is don't put any non-public or PII in there. I haven't looked at their data sharing agreement, but my guess is they're storing it somewhere. But the cool thing about LLMs doesn't matter. Take your JSON snippet, just enough that you want to understand how it's structured, put it in LLM and tell it to anonymize it, but just keep the structure. So if we do that, always hesitate to do things on the fly, but why not? So let's just take exactly, Mark. All right. So this is the little JSON blob here. I'm going to, oops, actually, I need the prompt with it. So let me just do this. And then let's give it a shot. Now you guys know what the actual information is there because I've showed it several times. It's about my presentations. So let's see what it comes up with. All right. So it's created a fictitious person, Alex, who's giving a presentation on getting started on JSON and student records workflow. So the structure looks the same. I'm not checking it completely, but I'm going to, for the sake of this presentation, assume that it kept the structure. Of course, you'd want to double check that. I'm just going to copy that now, and we're going to put it into JSON Hero. So you could just pop this in here. So what it does is it loads it up. It shows you the root object. And it says at the root level, we have 3 keys: events, presenter, and presentations. This shows you that it's in a list, that it's an array. So if you click on the presentations, it bumps you down to the next level. It says, okay, within presentations, there's 2 levels. We see 2 objects in there. It shows the JSON on the right, but what I like is what's on the left. So you click on one of those and it says, okay, within this one, we have, let me just move the Zoom thing out of the way. We have title, attendees, topics, other presenters, etc. And then we see these are lists, which we could click on each one of those. It'll show us, or we could click on the next object or box and it shows here's the 3 keys within that. So I really like JSON Hero. Is just someone gives you a file. You're not really sure what's in there. You're asked to maybe do something with it. You throw it in your LLM, you anonymize it, you put it in there just to better understand the structure of the data and what it's all about. So that's one approach. All right. So the other is you just put it within an LLM. And for time, I won't be able to do all these, but I'll show you what some results look like. So just customize your prompt to whatever it is you want to see. So this would be for a non-technical person saying, give me a summary of what the data is about, but don't use the JSON language. All right. And so here's the summary it gave me. It says, all right, it's about two of Phil's presentations. The first one's about JSON. The second one's about lifestyle records. So a real nice summary that gives me an idea of what this data set is all about. Another is you could say, customize it to say, okay, I do know a fair amount about data, just not JSON. So, present it in a form that would be familiar to someone who's used to using tabular data. So, oops. So this is what it gave me. It said, this is a possible way that you could put this in a table. It might look like that. And let me give you a quick summary of it. Now, of course, as you guys know, using LLMs, don't always trust what it gives you. You may give it the same prompt, same data, some everything, get two different answers. But generally, it does a good job about providing insights into summarizing it. And then, of course, you get to the next level and say, well, I am familiar with JSON data structures. So can you summarize it from that perspective? Sure, no problem. So there's the root object. Here's the structure of the presentation object, so forth and so on. Nice, clean, easy. So you could have a file that has, 40 presenters in it, and you just pull out one snippet and you do this, and you automatically have a good idea of what sort of data are in there. Okay, so data transformations. All right, who sees the old lady? All right, who sees the young lady? Hopefully everyone else, or if you just see yeah. So, all right, going back and forth between tabular and JSON. So is it almost always possible to convert tabular data in JSON? Yes. I put almost because there's surely cases where that's not the case, but generally speaking, going that direction works well. Not always the other way. The flexibility of JSON makes it sometimes to the degree that it does not lend itself well to converting to tabular data. So again, one thing we could do is just turn to LLMs. So if you want to put up a CSV file in there and you say, hey, turn into JSON, let me know if you have any questions, anything I need to weigh in on. Another one is the other way around. So, right, convert the attached JSON to tabular form and create a CSV for download. And then for those of you who use Alteryx, Alteryx is fairly limited on what you could do with JSON, especially depending how deeply it is nested in. But here's a prompt that I found works pretty good. So I just put this in there and I say, here's the version, walk me through exactly what to do. And it does a pretty good job. Do we have, I think we just have, let's just walk through that one. Are there a lot of people that use Alteryx here? Yeah, doing this one-handed too. Okay. So I think okay. So I think I said in there that I could share a screenshot. I don't know if I did on that prompt, but you could also, you could create a mock-up table, take a screenshot, put it in the LLM and say, you know what, I'm thinking I'd like a table like this. So, but the nice thing is, if you're unfamiliar with Alteryx, when you input your data and you select file type like you would CSV, it does accommodate JSON structure. So it'll just turn it into two columns, your keys and your values. I find after that it gets pretty clunky, but it's possible. But it'll kind of walk through, the steps here. So how you could parse it, then you'll need to reshape things, and it kind of gets to be a headache. Okay, so are we done at 40 after? Does anybody know? I should know this, but I don't. We got some more time? All right, I'm gonna put a few other ones in here since we got some time. All right, so let's go back to this one where we're asking it to convert this JSON into tabular form. I asked it to prompt me if it has any parameters I need to give inputs on, or tell me if it doesn't know. Same general disclaimer. I mean, this is obviously a simple piece of JSON. More complicated, it's going to have a harder time with. But I do find this works pretty well just to get insights into the structure. So it's going to give me all this, and it should give me a link to the download. Where am I not seeing it here? Oh, you need to decide. Okay, here we go. So it's asking me before I convert and save, I need to decide how to represent the nested arrays. Choose one of these options. So let's just say I'm just going to go with one for the sake of time. And let's see what it comes up with. Oh, okay, which is a bit ambiguous. All right. Well, you shouldn't have given me option one. Yeah. This is the part I think is actually fun about LLMs because it's very iterative, right? So you kind of go back and forth. So the nice thing is, okay, it shows a representation of this. Then you could download it as a CSV. And then we could see this is how it rendered it. So much easier now to do something with this than in the JSON format, at least for most of us who are more familiar with tabular data than JSON. So that's basically it. My main key takeaway from you is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of JSON or super data types. It's just data with very simple syntax. It could just get very complicated, but break it up into manageable parts. Use some of these tools to understand the data structure. And then once you understand the data structure and the underlying data, it's not a big leap into leveraging or scaffolding it into something you know, whether that's tabular data, XML, et cetera. So that's it. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. Any questions? Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So I've always been a consumer, not a producer of JSON. And every time I've consumed it, I've never had definitions with it. Has anyone else had that experience of getting, no? Maybe someone's just doing a great job of documentation. Is it as comments or okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've never seen that. Yeah. Boy. Oh, that'd be great. Thanks, Mark. All right. We're probably good on time, but if any has any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks. Have a great rest of the day.